Welcome back to the deep dive. This is where we take, a mountain of information and really boil it down to those essential insights you need to be, well, truly well informed. Today, we're digging into something I think we've all wondered about. Why do some people just seem to operate on a completely different planet than us?
It's a classic, isn't it? We've all
Yeah.
been there. Situations where you feel like you're surrounded by, well, let's just say, people whose actions they're thinking, it just seems to defy your logic. And
Yeah.
that's what this deep dive is all about, uh, drawing a lot from the insights in the book, Surrounded by Idiots.
Right, and the core idea is pretty intriguing that what we often see as, well, idiocy might actually be something more fundamental, like a basic difference in how we communicate, how we behave. Think of it maybe as a shortcut to understanding the how, what, and why behind what people do. We'll be getting into this framework, the DISC method basically, classifying behavior into four colors: red, yellow, green, and blue.
And what's really fascinating here is this isn't some brand new idea. I mean, the concept of understanding temperaments goes way back, like ancient civilizations were thinking about this stuff.
Hmm.
Our goal today is really to help you grasp these core patterns, see them in yourself, see them in others, and crucially, learn how you can maybe adapt your own style to build better relationships. Yeah, at work, at home, wherever.
Okay, so let's unpack this. This core idea. The author, he talks about being puzzled from pretty young, right? Why some chats were easy and others felt like talking to, well, total blockheads, as he puts it.
Yeah, and it really crystallized for him when he met this businessman. Sure, this guy was absolutely convinced he was surrounded by idiots. Literally, he thought Department A was full of complete idiots. Department B had fools. Department C, they were so weird he couldn't even figure out how they got to work. And he wasn't quiet about it. He called them idiots, which, obviously led to them trying to avoid him. They even set up a red and green light system at the office door to signal if he was in.
Wow, a red-green light system? That's something else. But then things got really interesting, didn't they, when the author asked him a question?
Oh, yeah, it gets better. The author pretty boldly asks her, so who hired all these idiots? Implying,
Yeah.
maybe Stir was the problem. Let's just say it didn't land well.
Yeah.
Stir apparently threw him out and mentioned something about wanting to fetch a shotgun and shoot him.
Yikes. Okay, so not a great reaction. But that whole exchange, that was the aha moment.
Exactly. It hit the author then. Sure, yeah, he was a good entrepreneur, but he was terrible with people because his only benchmark was himself. Anyone who didn't think or act exactly like him was, by definition, an idiot. Which really makes you think, doesn't it?
Yeah.
How often do we maybe subconsciously do the same thing?
That's a really good point. So the big takeaway from that, the thing that sort of sets the scene for this whole color system.
It's that communication happens on the listener's terms. Always. No matter how clear you think you're being, your message gets filtered through their experiences, their biases, their ideas. What you intend isn't always what's understood. You can't really change how the listener operates, but you can change your own approach. You can adapt.
Adaptation, right? It's like that toolbox analogy you mentioned earlier. You've got different tools for different jobs. A sledgehammer is great for demolition.
But useless for hanging a picture frame. Exactly.
Yeah. So all these behaviors, these colors, they're all needed, but it's about using the right one at the right time. That shift in perspective, that's key to avoiding conflict.
Absolutely fundamental. And that brings us neatly to the tools themselves, these colors.
Okay, let's get into them. Starting with the reds. How do you spot a red? Think about maybe who talks the loudest, or who really goes all out explaining things, or jumps in first with an answer.
Well, one thing that really stands out with reds is just how blunt and honest they can be. Ask them a direct question, you get a direct answer. No fluff. They really dare to express their personal truths, as the book puts it, which could be, intense, but also quite refreshing. They also have this incredible energy. They're tireless when they're set on a goal. Just watch out for what the author calls the slog or split thing.
Slog or split? What's that about?
It basically means if a red doesn't see a clear purpose in a task, forget it. They'll just ignore it. Their drive is immense, but it needs fuel, it needs a why. But if they do see the purpose, then their competitiveness kicks in. And it's pretty legendary.
Right, like that CEO example. He turned everything into a contest.
Oh, completely. Everything. Work soccer tournaments. He'd apparently flatten people. Reading books, aiming for 100 pages an hour. Even memory games with the little kids, like 5 or 6 years old. His wife actually had to ban him from playing with them because he gets so intimidating if he started losing.
Banned from playing memory with his kids. That's intense. But you said his intentions aren't usually bad. It's just about winning.
Pretty much. Winning is the goal. And that drive means they're incredibly efficient. They move fast. They hate sitting still.
Hmm.
There's another example. Bjorn, a consultant founder, apparently he could pack more into a workday than almost anyone, squeezing calls and emails into like tiny 5-minute gaps. That constant urgency gets a lot done.
And they can be incredibly convincing, too. That story about Elizabeth declaring the company would earn, what, $50 million a week? When the actual news was maybe $2.5 million.
Yeah, but she said it with such confidence, everyone just sort of believed her. It's that whole my way or the wrong way vibe. Like,
Mhm.
think famous Reds, maybe like Steve Jobs, Margaret Thatcher, even someone like Mother Teresa for that sheer unwavering determination.
Okay, so that's the driven, decisive Reds. Let's pivot. What up the yellows? If Reds are power and speed, yellows seem more about optimism, enjoyment.
That's a good way to put it. Yellows are often seen as having their head in the clouds, maybe, but they really live to soak up everything life offers. They radiate this joy, this warmth, like uncontrollable optimism is how the book describes it.
There was that sales director, Marianne. She could apparently get her team fired up to jump out the window because she made everything sound so easy. And that story with the angry customer.
Oh yeah, turning an absolutely irate customer into someone laughing out loud just by smiling and sort of refusing to engage with the negativity just
Yeah.
shows their power, that emotional contagion. They genuinely believe in positivity and can lift a whole room.
And they seem to bounce back from anything, like Mike, the author's friend. Sounds like the unluckiest guy ever. Car crashes, burglaries, losing jobs.
Yeah, just constant bad luck.
Yeah.
But it just rolls off him. He hits a lamppost, can't get out the driver's door, and his reaction is basically, oh, it's fine, just use the other door.
Incredible resilience, or maybe just incredible optimism.
It's that yellow core. Setbacks are just temporary bumps. They bounce back so fast, always finding the silver lining. It can be really inspiring, actually. And if you need ideas, find yellow.
Creative thinkers.
Hugely creative. They think visually. They're not afraid to try new things. And they're super persuasive because that energy and optimism makes them see possibilities where others just see roadblocks. Think Oprah Winfrey, maybe, or Robin Williams. That kind of vibrant, engaging energy.
All right, let's move to the greens. Described as the most common type, sort of the average of the others. Balanced, calm, easygoing.
Exactly. Greens are your classic harmony seekers. Their main goal is usually not to offend anyone, to fit in. They're great for calming down those high-energy yellows or warming up the cooler blues, like that story, The Green Wife. Her yellow husband is bouncing off the walls, and she's just sitting there smiling, saying, but he's having so much fun. Their priority is keeping the peace, supporting others.
So, really reliable. Like Maja, who remembered all the birthdays, organized everything, always helping out colleagues. Or Lhasa, who'd drop his own work in a second to help someone else out.
Super dependable. And they're also introverts, but in the sense that their activity is more internal. They don't just talk for the sake of it, but they really listen. Like Helena, the green salesperson. She landed a big deal with a tough client just by listening to him talk about his vintage car for an hour straight. She didn't offer solutions, just listened, understood. For a green, sometimes just being present, showing empathy, that's more important than jumping in with answers.
Makes sense. Okay, finally, the blues. The perfectionists. The detail lovers, the ones who will gently correct you if you say the Patriots went to the Super Bowl 11 times instead of 10.
Yes. Or that Will Smith grew up in this neighborhood, not that one. Precision matters to them. And interestingly, they're usually quite modest about it. They don't need to shout about being right. They just know they are. Like the blue manager who achieved something huge but just quietly accepted the praise and went back to his desk, wondering what all the fuss was about. He was just doing his job, properly.
So if you gave a blue a contract and said, just ignore the last 30 pages, what happens?
They'd probably ignore you. Seriously. They would rather stay up all night checking every single word than risk missing one tiny detail. It reminds me of the author trying to sell that leadership program to a blue CEO. He kept needing more detail. 10 pages, then 35, then 85. Finally, 300 pages outlining every 15-minute segment. And the CEO's only response each time was, is there any more material? For blues, the process, the data, that's way more interesting than the final decision. They're logical, rational. Like the dad insisting the gravel slope had to be exactly 1 centimeter per meter because, well, it says so in the book.
Right. The facts are the facts. Okay, so we've painted a picture of the strengths, but obviously nobody's perfect. These same great qualities can become, problems in the wrong context, and how people see themselves versus how others see them can be quite different.
That's a really key point. Reds and yellows, they tend to overestimate their strengths, maybe even think they don't have weaknesses. Greens and blues, often the opposite, they downplay their strengths and focus too much on perceived flaws. This mismatch really comes out when you talk about feedback.
Okay, so take the reds. Their honesty and drive. How does that flip into a negative perception?
Well, that honesty can easily come across as belligerent or arrogant. Their impatience makes them seem like rule breakers. Remember Bjorn driving in the bus lane for miles, paying $140 a month in fines? He saw it as a good deal because it saved time. For others, that's just arrogant rule breaking. And crucially, they often see conflict as, like, refreshing, which can be absolutely brutal for other types who hate confrontation.
Okay. And the charming, optimistic yellows, what's the downside there?
All that charm can easily look like selfishness or superficiality. They can seem overly self-confident. And their limitless verbosity, as the book calls it. Wow, like that yellow sales manager who talked for 69% of a meeting with 7 other people in the room. They're great at starting things, generating buzz, but that lack of focus, the carelessness with details, it can be really frustrating. And they're often late, genuinely believing 45 minutes late is just a few minutes.
Interesting. Now, for greens, you said their desire for harmony itself can be the weakness. How does that work?
Yeah, it's one of their biggest hurdles. They despise friction so much they'll avoid necessary conflict at all costs, which means anger, frustration. It just gets bottled up inside. The author uses this metaphor of a rotting pile of trash. Everyone knows there's a problem, maybe smells it, but nobody wants to be the one to actually mention it, so it just festers and gets worse. So while they're supportive, that conflict avoidance can actually create more stress down the line.
And the meticulous blues, when does their focus on detail become a liability?
They can definitely come across as evasive, maybe tedious, even aloof or cold-hearted. That 95% right is 100% wrong mindset. It leads to crippling perfectionism. Like the woman who insisted she wasn't a perfectionist, then described this incredibly elaborate shoe sorting and kitchen cleaning ritual she had to do before relaxing. And it causes decision paralysis. The guy taking 8 months to buy the most common car imaginable because he had to test drive 16 different makes first. Their quest for perfect data stops them from actually doing anything.
And under pressure, these traits just get amplified.
Totally exaggerated. Reds get even tougher, more controlling. Yellows might sulk or become overly dramatic. Greens retreat further into passivity. And blues, they can become completely closed off, obsessing over minuscule details nobody else can even see. Understanding the stress reaction is key. It helps you see it not as someone being deliberately difficult, but as their core style just turned up to 11.
Okay, so we've got the colors, the good, the bad, the stressed. What's the practical takeaway for, navigating all this? Clearly, we can't just expect other people to change.
Exactly. The real power isn't in changing others. It's in adapting yourself. That's where emotional intelligence really comes into play. So, dealing with a red, you need to match their pace, basically. Speed up. Be direct, businesslike. Skip the chit-chat, at least at first. Don't bother with flattery unless you know them well. They'll see right through it. And, importantly, if you're in a conflict and you know your stuff, don't back down easily. Reds respect strength, a solid argument, but maybe gently help them see how slowing down occasionally might actually benefit them long term.
Okay. And for the yellows, the energetic optimists.
With yellows, steer clear of getting bogged down in details. Lean into their love for new, exciting ideas. Be sociable, engage with them personally, and yes, genuine flattery, it actually works quite well with them. But when you need a firm answer or commitment, be prepared, be persistent. They're not great listeners, easily distracted, maybe even schedule meetings a bit earlier than you need them there. Like, invite them for 6:30 if you actually need them by 7:00. It's about harnessing their enthusiasm while keeping them somewhat on track.
Right.
Makes sense.
And the greens, the harmony seekers.
With greens, you generally need to take the lead in planning things. Give them clear, step-by-step guidance. If you have to give criticism, do it really gently, privately. Reassure them you still like them. It's just the specific behavior that's the issue. And explain clearly how their actions are affecting you or the team, that connection to group harmony is important to them. And try not to let them always step in and fix things just because they feel guilty or want to avoid tension. You need to create a safe space for them.
Okay. And finally, the blues, the meticulous analysts.
For blues, preparation is everything. Be factual. Use data, checklists. Don't expect much personal chat in a work contest. They want to get straight to the task. Forget the grand emotional speeches. Just give them the spreadsheet. We have Excel, remember. If they get stuck analyzing forever, try to provide that one last crucial piece of data they need and gently nudge them toward the decision. Show the logic. And yeah, maybe gently remind them now and then that other people do have feelings and reactions because they can sometimes overlook that in their focus on facts.
So that's adapting one-on-one. But what about when these different colors mix? In teams, for instance.
Ah, yes. That's where it gets really interesting and
Yeah.
sometimes tricky. The book talks about how combinations work. Some are easier. Blue and green, the calmer introverts, they often find a smooth rhythm. Same with red and yellow, the faster outgoing types. They kind of get each other's energy.
But I bet some combos create sparks if people aren't aware.
Oh, definitely. A red and a green working closely together if they don't understand this stuff. Friction is almost guaranteed. The red sees the green as slow and frustrating. The green sees the red as aggressive, maybe even bullying. And yellow and blue, potentially the most challenging mix. The yellow wants to jump in, improvise, full of ideas, but maybe short on planning. The blue wants to read every instruction, analyze every angle, and barely makes a move until they're 100% sure. It highlights how natural tendencies, without awareness, can just clash.
That sounds exactly like that team project experiment in the book, where they put managers of the same color together.
That was such a great illustration. The all-red group. Super noisy, lots of arguments, and they quickly solved the wrong problem. The all-yellow group. Loads of fun, very entertaining presentation, but basically just hid the fact they hadn't actually completed the task properly. And the all-blue group. Almost silent. Spent half their time just discussing how to approach the problem, the technicalities, and then asked for more time.
Huh. So the big lesson from that, the really crucial insight for anyone managing a team or just collaborating.
Just crystal clear. No group should be composed solely of individuals of the same type. Diversity is the only possible route. We often hire people like ourselves, right? But that experiment shows why that leads to imbalance and often ineffective teams. Understanding these dynamics, having that self-awareness, it's absolutely key to building better teams, better relationships, everything.
And it even shows up in simple things like emails, right? You can almost guess the color from the writing style.
Totally. A red's email. Short. To the point. Maybe all caps. Be punctual. A yellow's. Much more chatty personal anecdotes, probably emojis. A green's. Softer, more relational, maybe offering homemade cookies. And the blue's email. Pure facts. Direct. Attachments, phone numbers listed. Zero personal fluff. Knowing this helps you read between the lines, tailor your own reply.
And just to wrap it all up, that fantastic example of the company party when inhibitions were lowered.
Yes, the ultimate counterintuitive example. The normally talkative yellows became quiet, philosophical. The usually reserved blues were dancing on tables, telling off-color jokes. The dominant red boss was kind of mumbling apologies. And the usually conflict-avoidant greens, they were the ones giving him a piece of their mind.
Yeah.
It just shows how behavior can flip under certain conditions, but still relates back to these underlying patterns once you understand the framework. It really drives home that these preferences run deep.
So after this deep dive into red, yellow, green, and blue, hopefully it's clearer that those idiots we sometimes think surround us, they aren't idiots at all. They're just different, operating with predictable, understandable patterns.
Exactly. And learning this isn't about sticking labels on people. It's about gaining a richer understanding, seeing strengths and weaknesses, and remembering everyone brings value, deserves respect. It gives us a shared language to talk about differences without judging.
And maybe here's a final thought to take away with you. You don't always get to choose who you work with, right? But you often do choose who you spend your free time with. As you start noticing these colors in people, think about it. Do you tend to hang out with people just like you, your own color? Or do you seek out opposites? And how might understanding all this actually change those choices, those relationships going forward?
Yeah, we really hope this deep dive gives you some powerful new tools to navigate your interactions, maybe turn some of those old frustrations into chances for, better communication, real understanding. So get out there, start observing. You might be surprised what you see and what you can achieve with this insight.